All right, welcome to episode 178 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Brightman coming to you on a extremely rainy Friday, September 29th. Governor Murphy just issued a state of emergency in New Jersey. I'm hoping that my basement holds tonight. Uh, has not in the past, but typically, well, it's a long story. But I think I'm knocking on wood, and I hope everyone is safe out there. And I think that's kind of a good point to start. And some people might, I don't know. I'm just going to shoot from the hip. People might think this is a little corny, but I wanted to kind of touch on community, specifically with Rutgers. Today, the Knight Society announcing the Night Fest, Fan Fest for Rutgers men's basketball. It's going to be at the Barn on Friday, October 13th. And the title sponsor for the event is the Knights of the Raritan. And the front office, Pat Lawless, they're producing the event similarly to how they produced the Scarlet Open for Knight Society, which was the golf outing of Rutgers men's basketball over the summer. But another NIL event, and you have Knight Society and Knights of the Raritan coming together, which I think is awesome. And it's synergy, it's alignment, everybody helping everybody. And that's really, I want to touch on that in reference to where Rutgers is in the Big Ten right now, because, I talked about it on a previous episode, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and just talking about, Rutgers' place in the Big Ten and why the whole argument, it was right after they beat Virginia Tech, and talking about Rutgers, how far they've come by being in the Big Ten. And even though they haven't succeeded fully or even a lot in the Big Ten, they're still elevated amongst programs and athletic departments that they used to be below in the Big East. Namely, I referenced Boston College, Syracuse, and Virginia Tech in reference to football. But not just one thing I didn't do a good job of is not just, in a sport, but in terms of how they're positioned, right? In terms of, now facilities and also just long-term revenue, obviously coming from the conference. But the whole idea, and sorry to beat up on Stuart Mandel, but that whole idea that Rutgers is the worst conference realignment move ever, first of all, it's not true. We know that. And the Big Ten has profited. All the Big Ten schools have profited. We know Rutgers is in a better spot in a lot of ways, facilities, and their programs are doing, a lot of programs are on the rise, if not doing better than they ever did before. But the other piece of this is that they're only 10 years in. We are still really in, maybe not the infancy phase, but a very early stage. And this goes back to what happened today with Knights of the Raritan and Knight Society. NIL space is still fairly new as well. Everything's still developing. You have a university with President Holloway, who's still only been there about 3 years. You finally have alignment in the administration in a way we really haven't had in, I don't want to say ever, but in a long time, or as strong as it's ever been. How about that? With the athletic department, athletic director Pat Hobbs, the board of governors, everyone seems aligned. Obviously, there's going to be detractors. I know a bunch of people are upset about the student newspaper, the opinion piece in the Targum this week, blasting football for all the money that goes towards it. Listen, I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and we know the faculty are upset. And I'm not here to speak on university issues. And all I know is that athletics, I've heard this a lot lately, and it is so true, is that athletics is the front porch of any university. And it is a huge PR piece for your university. So I think that there's a value there that you can't quantify in regard to budget, or in regard to spend, right? In terms of it, yeah, it costs this much to put into athletics, but you can't always quantify the value of what it means to invest into your athletics, right? And it's not always wins and losses. And I just think this whole thing with NIL and doing this event, benefiting the men's basketball program, it's huge for the program. It's a weekend. They're going to have a ton of visitors. I've talked about this in the previous episode. I'll have more leading up to it. It's homecoming. It's just, I think it's awesome. It's just like a cohesive moment. I feel like and it's not, I don't want to get ahead of myself and say it's a turning point, but it is a very positive sign in terms of how things are headed. And that includes our journey in the Big Ten in terms of where Rutgers is, where they want to go, and why things are still very much building. And to dismiss the fact that Rutgers isn't in 10 years from now going to be in an even better spot or a better spot in the Big Ten, I think is short-sighted, because I think a lot of things are going for Rutgers right now that are still developing. And the infrastructure, the revenue coming in for the athletic department, perception across the state, across the Big Ten, across the national landscape, winning helps, right? And one thing I'd love to see is, of course, there's a ton of local businesses and big brands that sponsor Rutgers, and you hear them at the football games and all that. But as we get more into this, those brands investing more into student athletes would be awesome. An event like this having some big name brands attached to it. That's the goal, right, in the future, and that would show more progress. But doing this event the way they're doing it together, Knights of the Raritan, Knights of, they should both be commended. It's awesome, and it's going to be a Midnight Madness style type event. It's going to be great for fans, and it's really what NIL is meant to be: uniting fans and student athletes and making great experiences, and the student athletes benefiting, fans benefiting. And it's I just hope more and more of this comes. The autograph sessions that Knights of the Raritan have been doing have been very, very cool as well. More and more of it I hope to come. More and more brands I hope get involved. But it's all going to continue. U.S. News and Report, Rutgers, in the number 40 now nationally. I think number 15, Public University. That's improving. There's a lot of positive things happening at Rutgers, and I just think that the future is very bright. And I think the point is that the more that entities that all care about Rutgers can work together, the further things can go. I think everyone, I don't expect you to be listening to this and say, yeah, you know what? I like watching field hockey. I don't expect you to say that. But everyone who's a Rutgers supporter should get behind the fact that the Rutgers field hockey team is a huge story right now. They're 10-0. They're 2-0 in the Big Ten. They just had their 5th ranked win of the season. They beat number 8 Maryland, who, is really, for Rutgers to beat Maryland. I know, listen, I get it. You don't really follow field hockey, but I will tell you about it, that Meredith Civico, the head coach of Rutgers, has been there over a decade, won a national title at Maryland, and has arguably raised the profile of Rutgers. And long term, obviously, Maryland is still a better program. But right now, in recent history, Rutgers is starting to pass Maryland, which is a huge thing in field hockey. And the Big Ten is a powerhouse. And this field hockey team, by the way, a great omen for women's and men's basketball, is field hockey also went on an overseas trip this past summer. And they've obviously benefited from it because they are so aligned and working together, and just they've hit the ground running on the season. Civico challenges her team with a non-conference schedule, arguably more than any other program, and they've totally risen to the occasion after last year, having a lot of close losses. And it's just awesome to see a Rutgers program respond the way they have. They have a legit shot at the national title. I mean, they do. They're 10-0. They're going to be in the top 5 next week. It's very exciting. So whether you like field hockey, whether you even know anything about it, just give it attention. Send a retweet when the program tweets. Retweet it, like it, whatever. Do your part. That's another thing. Just if everyone can do a little bit to support each other, right? You don't have to be a field hockey fan, but support the field hockey program. It's a different thing. It's easy. You could always read my articles, but I digress. The point is, Rutgers Athletics and Rutgers University, I think, is headed in as the future builds. I think Holloway, certain things they're working on, but their future in the Big Ten, it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better, and football having the season they're having, there's a lot of hope. I talked about earlier this week the importance of seizing the opportunity that's in front of them, especially with the Big Ten, adding so many top football programs for next season. Right now, 6 of the top 9 in the AP poll will be in the Big Ten next year. The schedule is breaking in a very favorable way for Rutgers right now. They've made improvements as a team. October is everything. Yes, they play Wagner tomorrow, and I have some more Wagner content coming up. I apologize, I didn't have a ton this week. It's not the most compelling matchup. Wagner is improved, but there's a lot going on as well. But it's I don't expect to fascinate people with 8 articles on Wagner, but they're it's great to see a local FCS program getting better. And I think tomorrow will be a much more hotly contested game than last year's 66-7 win. But I think that there are things to get excited about. And I just thought I was inspired by the fact that Knight Society and Knights of the Raritan today announced this event. Knight Society, producing the event along with front office sports. It's a Knight Society event, but the fact that Knights of the Raritan is the title sponsor, just think about the message that sends to recruits, right? It's such a positive message. I don't know how many, and I know Knight Society isn't a true collective per se, but how many universities have different collectives or different, NIL generating groups working together. I know some, merge, but this is different, and they are different. And it's awesome that they're working together. The more the university can generate, they hired the new NIL manager, Reed Zach. I wrote about him when it was announced. I know that Rutgers is working on stuff. They have the NIL store now. They have, everyone is trying to generate more NIL. You have, Adidas signed Derek Simpson to an ambassadorship recently. They have Emily Mason, the women's soccer player, signed. Who knows what else Adidas is working on in terms of Rutgers student athletes. I'm sure there's more, but it's all positive. It's all positive. And I just think, this goes back to something else I said a few months ago about just as Rutgers fans, right? We let's just support each other too. Whether you're a football first fan, basketball first fan, it all helps each other. If football is doing well, it helps basketball. If basketball does well, it helps football. Maybe not, like an exact quantifiable way, but it all helps. If football is good, it helps the reputation of Rutgers. If football is successful, there's plenty of statistics out there about admission, applications go up, all that stuff. There's a ton out there. I can't quote anything off the top of my head, but it's out there. And Rutgers men's basketball has done wonders for Rutgers, the reputation, the fact that they're so well respected now in college basketball circles, and it's helped add credibility in the Big Ten. Now you have some Olympic sports. We've had Olympic sports success in recent years. Women's basketball I'm really excited about their season coming up. There's just a lot of things to be excited about. And the more that everybody can kind of get on board together. And again, being a fan, and I'll just say this, I say this a lot, but it doesn't mean you have to, as a fan, you have to donate to NIL. Not everybody can, especially in this day and age, living in the Northeast. But everybody can do their part in some way, liking a tweet, wearing a Rutgers hat, putting the R on your car. There's so many little things you can do that it all goes into the pile, right? It all goes into the pile of positivity of things that can help Rutgers in so many ways. And obviously, winning is a huge part of that. And I think we're going to see more of it in the future. I think you're going to see Rutgers' profile raise more in the future in the Big Ten, have more success in the Big Ten, in the postseason. NIL, obviously a huge part of that. But things are starting to get figured out a little bit. People are starting to have plans, and there's cohesion out there, and there's unity, and there's alignment. And that is not something that is very common at Rutgers. It hasn't been. And I just, I don't know if I articulated this the best, but it's just a feeling that I have that it feels different. Things feel like they're heading towards a really good place. And let the haters be damned. Enjoy the journey and Support Rutgers in any way you can. Support the student athletes any way you can. People love to be negative. I get it to some degree, but let's just have an open mind and understand that we all want the same things. We all want Rutgers to be successful. What are you doing today that helps, right? Is it just liking the Rutgers field hockey tweet? That raises its profile on Twitter, right? That would be an awesome thing to do. So I'm sorry if I got a little bit preachy, but it's just really coming out of a sense of optimism that I think Rutgers athletics is heading towards a better place. They're heading towards a better place in the Big Ten, despite all these other programs coming in, and everyone, in terms of financial support, the revenue's coming, but the more they can get brands attached to helping Rutgers athletes, the better. But the more that, the outside organizations, Night Society, Knights of the Raritan, perfect example today, working together to get Night Fest going. We'll have plenty of more coverage on that leading up to it. Rutgers Basketball Media Day is coming up. So I can't wait to ask the players about that. But there's a lot to be excited about. And I hope you are too. Hope everybody stays safe this weekend. Rutgers Wagner, Saturday. I'll have my rapid reaction after that. Plenty of other content on thescarletfaithful.com. Appreciate all your support and have a great weekend. And I will talk to you tomorrow.